Hey, and welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration Series podcast. This is a podcast where you can, where we're going to sit down with another builder, and we're gonna, I guess we'll kind of like inspire you in other ways. So we'll talk about specific topics that kind of still relate to Lego or Bionicle or all sorts of different things. And I don't know, just it's something to listen to while you build. It's just a nice time, you know. So normally in these sorts of things we talk about, I know we've spoken about like conventions. You can speak about something like buying and selling Lego, kind of just anything related to Lego in that sense. But what we're going to talk about today is community, and I guess sort of like self-MOCs as well. And I need a good guest to be able to do that. And the guest I have today, we've known each other for a fair bit of time, and we've been in the Bionicle community for a fair bit. So he certainly seems like the best guest to have for it. It is the Chewbacca to my Han Solo. It's Mr. Mitch Henry. How are you doing, good sir?
Doing all right. How are you, man?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited. I'm keen. It's always good to do a podcast with you. And I know before the show we were briefly talking about Brick Fair, which I'm also very, very excited for. So yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. I'm looking forward to actually finally like hanging out at Brick Fair. I think, like you said, we go back. Like I think it's been like 11 years or something. Like between now and like mock pages days.
Yeah, I think you said 2010 before we started recording, which is like that's like 12 years or something. 2010 sounds about right. That's well, it would have been around when like Hero Factory 2.0 came out, I guess, because that was I think
it was before 2.0, because I remember when what was his name, like Lego Freak 2444.
Yeah.
He had like the first mock I ever saw a CCBS shell on, and I remember looking at it and being like very confused as to what it was. And I think I had been on mock pages for like a little bit before then, but it was definitely around Hero Factory. I think 1.0 had already come out. Yeah, because you had Cossy already, and
fair.
But 2.0 hadn't come out quite yet.
Right.
That's when I got on mock pages.
Yeah, I think you're right then. But geez, that's ages ago. I love hearing you say that. It's like, oh, this is the first mock I saw that had a CCBS shell in it. That's like, just with how much it's used now, sort of thing. That's insane. That's really cool.
Yeah. That was a weird moment. Like that doesn't look anything like a Bionicle piece.
Yeah. Right? I think I kind of remember what you're saying though. That logic of like, because I remember initially with CCBS, it always confused me because it had it has the two like rod or bar connections on it, and I remember being like, but how do you connect that to stuff? Like that's not how Bionicle works, and like it's completely different these days. It's insane. Do you want to briefly talk about the topic that we'll talk about today with like self-MOCs and community? Because I know we kind of mutually decided to do it to a degree, but you were saying you were like really hungry to talk about it and stuff. So like what sort of stuff about it did you want to sort of touch upon today, and just, I know, a brief kind of overview of what you're thinking?
Sure. Like, I don't know, nothing super specific, just kind of like general thoughts on like what I thought then about like community and self-MOCs, and like what self-MOC I guess was to me then, and like what I think of it now. Because I feel like in some ways it's probably changed. Like the community-wide, what a self-MOC is has probably changed, but maybe in some ways it hasn't. Like I'm not too invested in that idea, I guess, these days. But just general thoughts on like where I guess where I am now and where I was then.
Yeah, nice. Heck yeah. Well, then on that, so like you're saying, kind of how you viewed self-MOCs and the community and stuff in the past. So what were those thoughts? Like what to you was it in the past?
Yeah, so like when I joined mock pages, I joined mock pages because I had a cousin at the time. I don't think he builds anymore, but he was like really into like ship building.
Oh yeah.
Like the ship timber, like 100 stud long spaceships kind of thing. And he told me about the website, and so I joined it. I remember seeing like other Bionicle creators on there, like Callan and like you, and a lot of them all had these like self-MOCs, and I had literally no idea what that term meant.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, well, I got to have one of these too. And just because my name at the time was Cheesy Q, I was like, well, I'll just use this new set, this Evo 2.0. He's yellow. I'll make a character who's yellow, and that'll be my self-mock, and I'll just have the same name. And it was just kind of like a, well, everyone else is doing it kind of thing. Self-mocks were like kind of your self-insert, your character. It was almost your brand. And especially because it was 10 years ago, we were all younger. So most of us either didn't want to or weren't allowed to use like our real names and real faces.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, was like the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, 100%.
I would not. I remember I didn't want to. I didn't want to put my name and face, but like that was the right call.
Yeah.
So I was this other character, but now I guess like the short version is now that people do know my name. Some people do know my face. People have heard my voice. Like I don't have a need for that kind of character, like that kind of self-insert.
Yeah.
And like that particular character, I feel like, well, I still like it. It's not completely emblematic of things that I still really like, I guess. So I guess I have like a new character that's similar but different enough, and I think is a better representation of the kind of like aesthetic choices that I like.
Yeah.
And I don't really see that character as a self-insert. Like he is his own character with his own character traits. But I like him a lot, and I similarly like kind of made him a brand, or like my brand.
Yeah.
And I just find him endearing, so I use him. I think of him as a self-mock, but I don't think of him as a self-insert. He's just like an original character that I like having around.
Yeah, I like what you said there about the difference between, excuse me, of a self-mock versus a self-insert. I suppose. I guess that's probably how it's changed these days. Because like with mock pages in the past, 10 years ago, whatever, I remember it very much being a case of like, oh, here's this new builder. I've never seen their stuff before. What's their self-mock look like? That was normally my like thought process. Whereas like nowadays, if someone posts something, I don't go, oh, like what does their self-mock look like? Because oftentimes some builders just won't even have a self-mock, or they'll build like 2 or 3 mocks and it's just, oh, I built it for a contest or whatever. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But like, I feel like the culture in the excuse me, the culture in the past was a lot more about like, yeah, self-expression with the self-mock. And I know people would often post on their mocks, or they'd even post a separate post about like, happy birthday to this builder. Here's like my self-mock, like talking to everyone, and he's like meeting the other person's self-mock, or they do little like jokey posts or an actual like story or something. So yeah, I guess in the past with the self-mock, it was more of a way of like, self-expression or just a self-insert, like you said. That's really cool. Yeah.
Well, like you were the king of those like crossover posts.
They were fun. Yeah.
It was like, it was like a whole year straight. It was like you were building other people's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in your own stuff, like your own versions of it. Right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, that's cool. So that's more how you saw it in the past. So how do you see it now then?
I think like I was just saying about that other character, Jack, where it's like he's a character he's not me, and like whenever I've like a few things I've like actually like written down about the character, I've gone out of my way to make sure he is not me, that he's someone else. Naturally, just like elements of myself are going to come into him. Like he is a creation of mine. Naturally, I'm going to put myself in him. On some level. Yeah. But I don't think of myself, like I don't look at him and think of me. And I don't know, he's still my brand. He's just not me. I don't really know how else to put that.
No, I think I get what you're saying. So like when you say he's your brand, what does that entail for you? Is it more because I think I'm correct in saying on Instagram your profile picture is Jack, and like he often appears in like stories or other posts and stuff. Like it's a character that people could be more likely to associate with you, and like you've drawn art of him, that I think you've commissioned art for him as well and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like just Is that so? Yeah, sorry. How would you classify it as your brand, quote unquote?
I suppose I think you just said it like a second ago. Like when people see him, they would think of me or think of my stuff. But so I guess in some ways, I guess it's undeniable that he's a little bit of me. But like I want people to see him and think, oh, that's Mitch's character. Like that's Mitch's character, but that's Jack. That's not Mitch's character, who's also Mitch. You know.
Yeah, I get you. Yes. Like there's a clear distinction between the mock and you. It's just, oh, I use this because I like it and people can associate it with me, but that is not me, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like how like a lot of independent artists on social media will have like a single character, like an original character that is kind of who they are known for. And I guess ironically that does kind of go back into like what we were talking about with mock pages, but like where other people will like draw that character and you that's their work. But I would think in most instances, those like illustrators don't see themselves in those characters.
Yeah.
But it's just part of like their brand on social media. Like, and I guess that I think of Jack in that way. Like he's just a character that people could know me for, but is not me.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair to say. With the idea of brand, I suppose something that I've heard people say before. I guess this is kind of going still kind of focusing on self-MOCs, but moving a little bit more to like the community side of things. People have often spoken about how not even just like the Lego community, like everything has become more kind of like brand focused because, now you can monetize stuff, or you can, the more followers you have, the more quote unquote influence you have. I always think that's a weird word. And, potentially it can make you money, or it can, you can put your opinions out there, or your thoughts, or spread good messages or something, and affect like change and stuff like that. So there's a good side to it in that sense. But like certainly in the past, I found with the Bionicle community on mock pages that there was a strong sense of like just having fun and like building other people's self-MOCs and like having a good time and stuff like that. Whereas nowadays, like people don't necessarily build each other's self-MOCs as much, or do those like quote unquote party posts, like I said before, of people meeting each other's self-MOCs, a little comic or something like that. And there can be a bit more of a focus on a brand of like, oh, please like my pictures, or like share my stuff, or like your support really helps, like da-da-da. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but there's certainly a clear distinction between the two. What do you think about that sort of thing? And I don't know, does your self-MOC of Jack, or even sort of your other kind of self-MOCs and does that kind of factor into it in any way?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. I hadn't thought of that before. Like yes and no, because a big part of that is like just the difference on platform, because like the way mock pages was structured is way different from the way Flickr is structured.
Yeah.
And I mean Instagram is structured differently too. But I'm just going to go with Flickr because that's kind of just my first association with Bionicle posting. It's what I kind of prioritize. But like with mock pages, it was, you had like a single page and you could put almost as many pictures as you really wanted to on it. I mean, given the limitations of the framework of the website.
Yeah.
But you had that greater capacity for like storytelling. And so you saw people making comics, or you saw people making those crossover posts. And with Flickr, you're looking at one image at a time.
Yeah.
The people that this is going to sound so bizarre, but the people I'm like associating with are more like, we talk a lot and we're I think we're pretty close, but we're more interested in kind of the project, or like the product itself.
I get you.
Product sounds too commercial, but
the goal is making the best mock, I guess. Is that another way to word it?
Yeah, it's like refining the idea into like the best possible outcome using the parts you have. So like focusing on making a great mock first and foremost. And Flickr's a good platform for that because you are looking at one image at a time. They don't have like tremendous compression on the images. You're usually looking at the image at as close to its original resolution as possible.
Yeah.
And that sort of like community has kind of moved off of Flickr, and we're recording this on Discord. Like I'm talking to most people about the hobby on Discord. Sometimes I talk to people on like Instagram DMs, but it's like few and far between, and maybe like a message or two.
Yeah.
So that sense of like community engagement is not on the same platform as where we're actually like putting the pictures.
Yeah.
So the ways that we're like talking to each other are way different now than they were then, and what we're talking about are also different because like it's not like built around a Lego experience. Like it is what it isn't, because like a Discord server can have like as many channels as you want. So
Yeah.
the topics of discussion are more focused, and they're more focused in like certain places, but they're also more broad because you can talk about anything besides just Lego. Where on mock pages it was like the focus was on the Lego building first, and all the discussion was like around that. But I think I lost track of the question.
No, that's okay. I guess it was more just, well, firstly, it's just interesting to hear you say that about like how the website and the layout of it has affected how the community engages. Because like that was another part of mock pages that it's certainly worth noting, is that yes, you had your posts where you put up the post, you can put multiple images in it, you can add text, you can even add HTML and stuff to color the text, make it bold or whatever. But then you also had the like groups on mock pages where you could like hang out with people and talk, and you'd post your mocks in the group so that people notice it, that sort of thing. And like Instagram and Flickr, no, Flickr has groups, although I barely use Flickr groups for conversation, to be honest. But that sort of medium is certainly different now, and so people go to Discord to have a chat, and Discord's such a perfect place to have a chat. It's so just perfectly structured for that. And it's interesting, like you said, that the fact that people don't talk on the mocks, they then go to Discord to talk, and so they're almost sort of two separate things in that sense. The question before was about like branding and stuff, but I like what you're saying, so let's keep going about that. Do you think, because we don't really have a Lego dedicated website to post mocks on, which is kind of what mock pages was, and now it's gone. Do you think like having a dedicated website that isn't Flickr, that isn't Instagram, because people post more than just Lego on those places, do you think having something like that would improve the community in any way?
I mean, it could if one would take off, because like there was that attempt with Brickley.
Yeah.
And like that, I mean, realistically, that probably had the best chance of being a Lego focused platform.
Yeah.
That wasn't run by the Lego group itself.
Yeah.
And I think it probably, like, everyone remembers Brickley going down kind of tragically, but I don't know if that could have lasted. Like, that probably lived out its life in like with the best possible way.
Yeah.
I suppose it could, but I don't know if it could. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because the system we're using now, or it's like you post on one platform and you talk on another. Like, unless some platform emerged that mixed those two systems exactly as they are right now, I don't think it would have a significant impact. Like, I suppose the only way it could happen is if Discord, in somewhere way down the line, either through multiple updates or one absolutely massive update, like if Discord adds some kind of feature that's similar to like Flickr, like if you have a profile that functions similar to Flickr, then people would probably just dump it and just focus on Discord. But then it would also have to have an image uploader that doesn't compress your photos, which Discord is notorious for compressing photos in chat. I don't see this system changing unless one of two very unlikely scenarios happens. And even then, I guess people aren't too terribly concerned with image compression because Instagram is overtaking Flickr in terms of Lego activity.
Yeah, exactly.
But that also isn't helped by Flickr's owners seemingly making bad decision after bad decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we mentioned it before we started recording that the fact that Flickr only allows you to upload 1,000 photos, and sure, 1,000's a lot, but like, you know, if you want to post multiple angles of your mocks, or you just build a lot of mocks or whatever, it's so limiting, you know.
Well, unless you want to pay $70 a month.
Yeah. Is it $70 a month?
That's an outrageous price.
Jeez, like, I didn't know it was that much. Wow.
Yeah, they keep giving me ads on the mobile version. Like, you want to pay $70 a month for Flickr Pro? I'm like, no, I don't. I never want to.
Wow. That's ridiculous. Wow. I think I even remember Patrick saying once that with Flickr Pro, like, yes, you can upload more photos. I think it gives you like stats and a few other things, but I think you can still kind of get those stats even if you don't pay. And it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how worth it is, but
The benefits that they offer are really not worth it to someone who's in it for the mocks, because benefits they offer are more for people who are really interested in the photography side of things. And
Right.
and Pat is like, he's a very good photographer.
Yeah.
The people who are doing a Lego hobby are hobbyists. They're not doing this professionally. Like there's maybe a handful of people who have made that don't work for the Lego group.
Yeah.
That have made Lego their profession successfully.
Yeah.
So the benefits of Flickr Pro for the price that it is are just not worth it to
Absolutely
someone in this hobby.
Yeah. But see, I think because even that's really interesting. Like the logic of if we did have a Lego dedicated website, I remember that was another thing with mock pages is so many builders started on mock pages and then left because mock pages developed this reputation of being a website for kids. Because you'd get a lot of kids who would like spam stuff and just were newer to the internet and didn't necessarily know how to conduct themselves as maturely. That's a very broad statement, but like, that was an element of the reputation. I remember seeing a lot of conversations about people being like, oh, don't go to mock pages, it's for kids sort of thing. So it's entirely possible we do get a website and it, develops a more unique reputation. I was looking for the word, I found it. And it's also totally possible. Like I remember even when mock pages was around and, that was a format I think it's fair to say we both enjoyed. I remember people would always link me to, I forget what the website was. It probably doesn't exist anymore, but this sort of separate website where you could sort of instant message people and they'd be like, oh, let's have a chat on that and stuff. So like, even when that website does exist, people would go elsewhere. So who's to say it wouldn't come out and then be like, yeah, let's just go back to Discord. It seems likely that I don't know. I think it needs to be like a perfect storm sort of thing for it to, have a really deep impact on the community. Because I think, people are making do with what we have, and Instagram will update itself and people are like, I hate Instagram, it's the worst. And then 2 days later, they're back at it and they're like, it's great, So who knows?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name because I know exactly what you're talking about with that chat website. It was something chat, and I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
But with Discord, it's now a completely irrelevant platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would. As far as like a Lego focused website go, I agree with you. It would have to be a perfect storm, and I think the only way you could get enough people to want to like jump ship and go to it is if the Lego group itself made it.
Yeah.
But like they are pushing more into like the adult market and to like the collectible market. But first and foremost, they are a toy company, and their primary demographic is like that 7 to 12 range.
Yeah.
Like a majority of Lego sets are going to be aimed at that range currently. I mean, I know, like I said, I know they are moving into that adult market and collectability market. So I would be surprised if right now the Lego group was thinking of making a website for like an full dedicated like online gallery type thing. I don't know if I am not like a business-minded person. I don't know if that's financially feasible for them.
Yeah. Or even if it is, it's like, what would they gain from it? Like, it's not necessarily a good business decision, quote unquote. Again, I'm not a business person either, but it doesn't seem like it would make them money,
They would gain goodwill, and that's something you can't buy.
That's fair.
And that's something every company needs. But Lego also has like more goodwill than any other company ever.
Yeah.
Especially right now, because I think for like 2 years in a row, they've been voted like the most reputable, well-liked brand in the world.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like they don't need goodwill, and that's probably the number one thing they would. In my uneducated opinion, I think that's the number one thing they would gain.
It seems
from
fair
having
to say.
From having like an full focused online gallery.
Yeah.
But like I don't see them doing it anytime soon. And if they're going to have like a Lego gallery, which they've had and probably still have on some level, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't use it. If they haven't, or if they're going to do it, it will be kid focused first. So it wouldn't like solve the quote unquote issue that mock pages had of being perceived as a kid's website.
Yeah. And then it could also go the way of video, not in terms of like being discontinued, but like the video app. I never really used it, but from what I heard, it had a lot of restrictions on it of like,
Mhm.
can't show your face, you can't do this, you can't upload it to the internet, it can only go on this specific website, like da-da-da. And it's possible they do that, which I understand why Lego wants to do that, because it's to protect the kids, which is totally fair and totally reasonable. But like,
Mhm.
I also think that was a bit of the downfall of video, because it's like, well, you're limiting me so much, it's hard to be creative. So like, I just won't use it. I'll just go to TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd be worried that if Lego did make a product like that yes, it would have to be kid focused, and then they'd be like, well, then here's all these restrictions, and then the AFOLs would be like, let's just go to Instagram, you know?
Yeah. And Lego has like, I don't know, it seems like, especially lately, they've not had a good track record of doing like digital or like internet focused things.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Hidden Side was a moderate success video. Yeah. I don't think anyone thinks that was a success. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're definitely, it seems like they definitely want to push into that multimedia thing. And I get that, because the toy industry is collapsing around them, and they are dominating the toy industry because they're moving away from being a toy company. At least that's how it appears to me.
Yeah.
It seems like they're desperately trying to find that thing that will click with like being a multimedia, physical and digital combination.
Yeah.
And it seems like nothing is sticking.
Yeah.
Because they are a toy company, and
yes.
they're going to make something for children. So, you know, all this to say, like, the Lego Group is going to be the thing that, barring that perfect storm solution, like you said, the Lego Group is going to be the thing that comes in and makes that Lego focused platform for adult fans of Lego. And I just don't see it happening anytime in the near future.
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I've realized I haven't been sharing my opinions as much with some of these conversation points, but that's because I agree with you.
Sorry, and I can ramble real easily.
I like it when you ramble, Mitch. It's totally fine. Don't you worry. It's not rambling. We're having good conversation.
Thank you.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Let's briefly go back to self-MOCs. So you have your self-MOC Jack, and then you have your other self-MOC Zenon, who used to be called Cheesy Q. And you still have Zenon around, but he's very different to how he used to look, and has more of a sort of like Metroid vibe and stuff. So what's the reason that you keep the MOC around? Is it Zenon specifically? I mean, is it more the sense of like nostalgia with it, or just how you still really like the MOC? Like what's the reason you still have your old self-MOC still alive?
Well, a cynical answer would be there's nothing in him that I want the parts from, but that's not true. I don't think I feel nostalgia much.
Okay.
Like, there's very few things I've ever looked at and thought like, wow, that takes me back.
Yeah.
But then I should also say that I kind of define nostalgia as almost like blind love for something, where there are absolutely things that I liked as a kid and I still like. But like as an adult, I either like it despite its faults or like it because of its faults.
Gotcha.
So I'm sure there is some level of nostalgia in why I still have the MOC together. I've also kept him like up to date, like as of 2019. I don't think I touched it as of 2019. I don't feel a great need to. I think the MOC probably reached the peak, like the best he's ever going to be, as far as the build is concerned.
Yeah.
Like if he looked now the way he did when I first built him and when like Evo 2.0 got released, then I would probably say, yeah, it's just purely nostalgia. But that I had continued to update him, and like I completely rewrote what the character was like twice. I think that I keep him around because I just genuinely like the design. We were saying before we started recording, like I do Lego because it makes me feel creatively fulfilled.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that MOC. I like Zaron because he feels like a good finished product, or finished piece.
Yeah. That's totally fair.
I hate to keep saying product because I don't think of myself as products. Like,
yes.
I don't think of myself as a brand, as a company. Like, like this is something I do for fun. Like I have thought about, would I ever sell my MOCs, and I always come to no, never, absolutely not.
Yeah.
This is my hobby.
I
feel weird saying it, but it is kind of like my passion.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell them. Yeah. I should stop saying product.
No, I know what you mean. I'm trying to think of an example. I can't, but I've done that before too, where I use a a different word and means something else. I get what you mean when you say product, but it's important to clarify because I'm sure other people might view it in a different way. But no, I get what you're saying. It's interesting to hear your reason for keeping Zenon still built, which I love, and I'm happy that it is just it brings me joy essentially, because that's awesome. I feel like the reason I still keep Cossy alive is very nostalgia based, because looking at him, you were saying with like Zenon, you're like, he's reached a really good point where I'm very happy with the build. It's kind of at a sort of quote unquote perfect stage. Perfect maybe isn't the right word, much like product, but like it's at a great place. Whereas I look at Cossy and go like, yeah, modern pieces and some revamping and stuff, he could look much better, but I'm still happy with how it looks. It still brings me joy, and there is that nice sense of nostalgia with how he looks. I still keep him like that. So that, to me, that's the reason I still keep it alive, but also the sense of he's kind of that sort of like mascot. Like it's, my profile picture. It's the image I often use for branding on YouTube sort of thing. So I kind of keep him alive for that sense. That being said, you'll see it in the thumbnail of this video. There is a little Matoran Cossy that I made that I'm going to bring to Brick Fair. And part of me is kind of like, I guess that's maybe the new quote unquote Cossy, but I don't know about that still. I don't know if I want to put that in writing or anything, but like kind of. But yeah, it's just interesting to hear that. I mean, the version of Cossy still brings me joy, so I guess it's kind of fairly similar to yours, but I would say mine's more rooted in nostalgia, that like looking at him, it's like, I remember mock pages. That was fun. I remember like old community stuff. That's cool. So it was cool to hear the difference.
Yeah. I like that you said mascot. I think I should have been using that word instead of my brand, like Bugs Bunny. Like he's become a mascot. Bugs Bunny is a character. He has he is a distinct character with a distinct personality. And even though he has slipped into being a bit of a mascot, he is still his own thing. And I think of that when I think of Jack. And I think with Zarin, it's like I never really knew what I wanted that character to be, because he was made to be a self-mock when I didn't know what a self-mock was.
Yeah.
And so I've always struggled with like what is his personality? Who is he? And I never got an answer to it. Like obviously he looks like a tough guy. He like has that, like the visor of that helmet has that slant to it, that angle, so he looks like he's got a furrowed brow. So like he looks like a stoic, tough character. But I think when I made Jack, I designed him with a very specific vision in mind and a very specific character in mind, and I feel that I feel that character was more, not legitimate, but like there was more of a vision with him, and Zarin kind of slipped into something where Jack was always that thing, and I feel like I was successful at making that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. I like that, because I think that is such an important factor to a self-mock, is the element of like personalization, or just sort of, I wasn't going to say this originally, but I think it is the amount of joy it gives you, or fulfillment, I guess, too. Because like you're not going to pick your self-mock and be like, oh, it's friggin' Jeff that I found on the street or something, like you want it to bring you a sense of joy. You want it to I guess to have had a story, not he's born from Makuta and blah blah blue, like a story of like, I built this mock when I was at this point in my life and or like, I came in with a really set goal and I achieved it, like that sort of story behind it. That's cool. That's nice to hear. I like that. Yeah.
It's funny too, because Jack, I know I've said this story before, and I can't remember if I said it here or somewhere else, but Jack came to me when I was working at my last job, and my last job, I worked 10-hour shifts. Yeah, it was 4 10-hour shifts, and I was like soldering control boards. So I was sitting down for a long time, and they let you listen to music there, and music just helps me focus.
Fair
so
enough.
I sat down, and I think I was driving my dad's truck to work, and there's a cassette tape in it. There was
Nice.
Bob Seger, and I actually really like Bob Seger. I like rock. I like rock and blues.
Beautiful.
Just something about that music like just kicked into me, this idea for what would become Jack. It also helped that I was working at a place that manufactured automotive parts, so I'm listening to blues rock music.
Yeah.
I'm working with automotive parts, and I get this idea of this character. It's like, what if I made this like kind of middle-aged, like chubby biker character,
Yeah.
but he had a space helmet.
Yeah.
Because I like sci-fi, I like space helmets, and I
Yeah.
think at the time I was using another mock as a mascot. It was like the other like astronaut character that I made.
Yes. Yes.
And I was using that guy. I just sent it to you as
Yeah.
my mascot at the time.
Yes, him. I love him. Yep.
I was like, what if I use that helmet? And I was like, I made like this character, and then I proceeded to spend like my entire shift like, okay, who is this guy? What's his name? What does he do? Where does he live? Like his whole world like came to me.
That's cool.
Like this one day.
Yeah.
And I whipped up this really basic sketch.
Oh yeah, cool. Awesome.
And then I was just like, well, this is the character now. And like he's obviously he's gone through some changes. Changes that were kind of dictated by the mock.
Yeah.
Because like his proportions there are much different than like what the mock looks like.
Yeah, fair enough.
And like his whole like anatomy is different. And that was just like it was a necessary change because when I adapted it from a drawing into a physical model, made with pre-built elements like that. That's just what's going to happen. That's what happens when you do adaptation.
Fair
Things
enough.
have to change.
Yeah.
It's a different medium, and I like them. I like them both the same amount. I'm not saddened that I had to go back on this original design.
Yeah.
I think I even designed him the way I did just because I didn't feel comfortable enough doing more like realistic anatomy.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that the mock has very realistic anatomy, but it's more anatomical than that drawing is.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and like there was definitely a vision with Jack, but he was also influenced by necessity. So
yeah,
but that's just the creative process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, my sketches are completely different to how the actual mock looked, but I still think it turned out perfect. So yeah, that's cool though to hear the story behind it. And I mean, I think I think with Cossy, not quite a similar story to you, but like at least have a story. I remember seeing a mock by someone. I think his name was a Dr. Seuss reference. I think it was Green Eggs and Ham, or it was something else. I don't remember.
Sam I Am.
Thank you. It was Sam I Am. Thank you.
Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah. He built some mock that again, it was using Hero Factory pieces as Hero Factory was starting to come out, and I think he used the lightning pieces from Surge or something. He might have even used some parts from Breeze. I can't remember. And I saw it. It was an unfinished whip, but I was like, that's so cool. And like, look how he's combined the Hero Factory with it. I was like, I really want to do that. And so then I remember going to the shops and being like, okay, I was apprehensive about this Hero Factory stuff because it replaced Bionicle, but like I'll buy, I wanted to buy Surge for the lightning pieces because I was like, I want to do what he did. And then I wanted to buy Breeze because I was like, I think the colors of Breeze would look nice with the lightning pieces, but I only had enough money to buy one. So I bought Surge. And then I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll go back later and I'll buy Breeze and then I can build the mock. And then I just got too excited and I built the mock and I was like, he'll be blue. It doesn't matter. So I built it, very much inspired from his picture. And I was like, it's okay. It's not great. His looks much better than mine does. But then I sort of sat with it more and I was like, it's not too bad. And then I think I joined Mock Pages a few days later and then posted it as a Mark Surge revamp because I was like, I built it with the intention of being a self-mock too, I'm pretty sure. Okay. And it didn't quite feel right, so then I made it into a Mark Surge revamp. And then I think I was looking at Callan Lord of Fire's self-mock and I was like, I really like how Callan did the legs and parts of the torso and stuff. And I was like, what if I revisited it? And then I revisited it and then I did that very typical Mock Pages leg style of those Hero Factory like shin guard pieces from 1.0 on the legs and some other stuff, and really kind of like beefed him out a little bit. And I was like, I really like this. I'm happy for this to be my self-mock. And that was kind of just the process of it, I guess. I like your story more, but not that it's a competition, but that's at least the sort of the story behind Cossy. And I think one thing that always gives me joy with Cossy, and is certainly a reason I like to keep him as is I remember at one point I was like, this version of Cossy that I made is okay, but I want to revamp it and make it cooler. I remember getting into like a mocking block, and it was a more like difficult time of my life as well. And it was because my mental health wasn't as good at the time, it was affecting how I was building. So I went like almost a year without building. And then then quality of life improved more. And then I tried to finish off that version of Cossy, and I got the version that is more or less what he is today. And suddenly it was just this like springboard into more creativity, and just like I was just building so much, and it, you know, then it kind of led into this channel, because I was like, oh, cool. Like I sort of learned my mocking process. I was like, I kind of want to share that with other people. Like I've learned that by like studying other people's mocks and looking at it and all that, it gives me inspiration. And then I go, okay, I'm going to build that, you know, instead of just sitting there and looking at a blank page and going, I need to create something out of nothing. It's like, no, like look at what other people have done and let that inspire you, kind of thing, which is where the Bionicle Inspiration series came from. And is what helped me with that version of Cossy sort of thing. So like, that's also a big part of Cossy for me, is that it was such a springboard into creativity. It was a springboard into making YouTube videos, which I love doing. And that's kind of why I like to keep him as is, because it's kind of like, that's such a like representation of that like triumph over adversity, you know. Yeah, that's cool. I like hearing both our stories of behind our self-MOCs. It's interesting how much that actually does impact their importance, I suppose. That's cool.
I like that. Yeah, you're telling me I have the better story, and here you are like, oh, this character represents like me climbing out of like a low point in my life and like turning my life around like for the better, and like inspiring others. Like, and I'm like, I listened to a song and I made a guy.
Music is powerful. No, yeah.
Yeah.
We both have equally good stories.
Thank you. No, that's cool, man. If to go off of that, like as a testament to that, and I'm sure many people, when I see that Mark Surge helmet, I was thinking this like a day or two ago, like I don't think of Surge, like I think of you.
Oh, thank you.
Like I think of Cossy. Like that's the mask that Cossy wears. Like that's I feel like that's a testament to your story there.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's very kind of you. Because we are going to answer some audience questions, is there anything else you want to talk about with self-MOCs or with community and stuff like that? Because I know this was a topic you were hungry to talk about. But you know, obviously we'll keep keep this podcast sort of short and sweet as much as we can. But don't want to discourage you if you've got anything else to say. Is there anything else you want to touch upon with this sort of thing?
Yeah, there's
go ahead.
Something that I've noticed is different between now and then. And you know, for what it's worth, I'm not looking at the people that I'm engaging more with aren't really self-MOC oriented, like you mentioned. Like that's not a big thing amongst like the group I'm in. But those that do, like I've noticed there's very little of what we used to do on mock page, where it was like, you know, we would update the mock like frequently. You know, like I think Zarin is on like version 13 or something. Like if I'm actually like counting it, it's probably like 13 or 14. I'm not doing that with Jack. I made Jack, and I've swapped out like one or two parts. Like the light blay mixel sockets are now dark blay. And if I really wanted, I could make them black. Like I could like the black 1x2 with like 2 clips on it. 2 vertical clips. Because those can fit a mixel joint.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
They're a little weaker, but they can fit one. And I could just like use the black mixel joint on a pin.
Yeah.
I could do that. I don't feel a great need to, because I can just kind of overlook it.
Yeah.
And like I've added like maybe 3 pieces on the helmet, changed a couple things here and there. I've done really minimal updates to it since I first made it. Like, and I retook the photo when I did that, but I didn't call it like a new version. I just swapped out the photo on Flickr and just I didn't call it anything new. Where I feel like at the time, and well, I know at the time with Zarin, it was like I was updating him a lot. Like I said, he's version 14 or whatever it is. Yeah. And like that's just because like the philosophy is different. It's like then it was you made this character because it was your character, it was your self-insert, and you updated it as you got new pieces, and it was something to talk about, something to do with other people. Like we built each other's characters with the pieces we had, and that could inspire others to like change elements of their original version, right? But now we're doing it because like I said earlier, we want to make the best possible end result. We're looking for
Yes.
like an aesthetically pleasing mock. So that desire to like update a single mock multiple times kind of doesn't exist because we're almost like looking to never need to update it.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, barring new pieces just being invented. Like,
Yeah.
I know Marco, he has a mock that's like a self mock to him, and he's doing some updates to him because he had like kind of rushed it out for a contest,
Mm-hmm.
and I know he's not really too pleased with the result.
Mm.
Like, he likes it, but it wasn't exactly what he had wanted, and there have been new pieces that have come out since the time he posted it.
Yeah.
That he wants to
Okay.
give it like another go over.
Mm-hmm.
So like outside of new things coming out, or maybe like rushing out something for whatever reason, we're not going back and touching things up because that's not the goal.
Yeah. Well, even saying that, like someone like Applecross, for example, they often on Instagram share behind the scenes sort of process photos in their stories. Even like My Snail Eats Pizza or Mesep or whatever, they do that too. So a lot of people have been doing that more often.
Mm-hmm.
And I always find it so interesting to study that and be like, oh, wow, that like first version looks nothing like the original. And this might just be my own personal experience, but I remember with mock pages, I would build mocks quite quickly. Like I remember there was one time I built like 5 in a day or something. And I would then like post it. And I don't know, maybe the culture's just sort of shifted of like, you do all that at the start. Like if you don't post a mock for months, that's fine because you're refining it now and you'll get it there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think it necessarily matters. I think both are great ways of approaching a mock, whether you do it before or after. But it's interesting to note that more people seem to be doing that earlier on and then posting versus posting right away and then maybe refining later. Then I feel like that goes into the argument, the very like George Lucas argument of like, once you put the art out there, are you then allowed to refine it? Because people get quite upset about some of those changes in Star Wars. For those playing the BIS drinking game, I mentioned Star Wars. Take a drink. So yeah, I don't know. That being said, I think if you want to refine a mock, of course you can. I don't think there's any issue with that. I'm very keen to see what Marco does with that because I love that mock. I didn't know he wasn't happy with it and wanted to refine it, but I'm keen to see what he does. But yeah, that's cool. That's interesting to see the difference there, and I think it's also important to state like it doesn't matter if there's a change per se. I don't, because that to me is not a bad change. I think it works just as well. Really, it's nice to know that it's shifted, but it's still the same thing more or less.
Yeah, and what you're springboarding off of like behind the scenes, like that build process. There are a lot of people who kind of build things on their own, and then like after the fact will share what they were doing. And they oftentimes they do this too, but like a lot of times that like refining process, it's happening before the posting because of what I was saying earlier, where like the platform is just different. Like because we were posting a final like end result, a final mock on like an online gallery like Flickr, and the discussions are happening on Discord, like the refining process is happening. It's still like a social thing, but you're posting your work in progress pictures in like Discord channels, and you're like, you're getting feedback that way.
Yes.
Where go to like some old mocks on Flickr, and by old I mean like 10-ish years, and look at how many like notes are on a Flickr picture.
Yes.
Where like people are like highlighting an area and saying, okay, well you could do this here, or I like this here, or I don't like this here. And then like look at the chains of notes that are on that, and then look at any mock now, and very rarely are you going to see something like that because like the platform is just different. Like you can get that refining process before you post it, and you can have a cleaner gallery for it. Yeah,
even the push towards cleaner galleries, like people will pay attention to how their Instagram looks from its front page or how the Flickr looks, and because I mean even like scrolling through like someone like Jockson's Flickr, it just looks nice, all these like clean backgrounds, just one image of a mock, and just boom, boom, boom. He's got so many of them, and they all look so nice. It's interesting because I feel like that was slightly different in the past with mock pages. Because like you said, it'd be like here in a row is 17 different versions of my self mock because I've updated a few pieces, and I call it, self-mock version 2, 3, 4, you know. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I did it all the time on mock pages where I would have 4 photos as like kind of the main photo because it was like a full 360,
Yes.
right? But I can't realistically do that on Flickr. Like I could, but it'd just be a waste of photos, especially with the photo cap that they have now.
Yeah.
If I'm going to include more photos, I'm going to link them to like a third platform, right?
Yes.
I know people like Jackson, he still uses Brickshelf and like good on him.
Yeah.
You know what? Brickshelf still exists. That's still a Lego centric AFOL themed platform.
That's a good point.
It still exists.
Yeah. You can't comment.
So here we are
but
talking
still.
about like here we are talking about if one could reasonably exist and
This is
it
true.
exists.
Yeah, good point.
Well, but like Brickshelf doesn't have a lot of the modern quality of life features that others do.
Yeah,
like Brickshelf is a gallery first and foremost, and
Yes.
it has very little else.
Yes.
But like that aside, like going back to Flickr,
Mhm.
and like the clean Flickr galleries, like if I want to include multiple photos, and I do frequently with my mocks, I just link people to like Imager.
Yeah.
Just like another platform for that because I want that clean gallery. I want people to easily access my mocks.
Yeah.
I know some people like to do like 2 or 3 photos. I like to just do 1, and it's just easier to me.
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's aesthetically pleasing to have a nice, clean-looking gallery like that, and if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. I think, I like that you do it. I think it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
I think one last thing, going off of what you said earlier, like near the beginning of the podcast, where like you were saying, like people would make those posts where like they'd have multiple people's self-mocks, multiple people's characters like all coming together and like having like a little comic, like a little event.
Yeah.
Right. That sense of like, I guess, community togetherness, I think it still exists in some capacity. It's just not the exact same process because, you know, we're doing more like collaborative builds, which I can't think of like even one when we were on mock pages.
Yeah, good point.
Like multiple people all building under like an umbrella theme.
Yeah.
So there's more of that now, and so there's still there's still a very active level of community engagement, and you could even say that the Secret Santa collabs, and there's like a bunch of people are organizing their own Secret Santa collabs now. Like you could even say those are like just the extension of those kind of self-mock collaboration posts.
Yeah.
Because even if it's not like you said, not everyone has a self-mock. So like ultimately you're looking at building something that's representative of another builder, but not a singular character that's representative of another builder. Like I've never had anyone build Jack.
Yeah.
Which I understand because he uses a non-Lego element and he's a very like specific design that I don't think he could reasonably be replicated with other Lego elements.
Yes.
Besides the ones I've used.
Yes.
I've never had anyone build Jack, but I've had people build Zarin. Like I've seen that happen.
Yes.
Because his design is more like lends itself naturally to Lego.
Yes.
More so than like for some Secret Santa collabs, I think the very first one they built Zarin. But in all the other ones, they've built something that was like something I've made, but not specifically something that I've made.
Yeah, exactly.
Already.
Yeah.
So there is definitely that level of like people wanting to make something representative of someone else, but they're just not building one particular thing by that person.
Yeah. I'd never looked at it like that, but that's interesting. Yeah, it is. I guess it's just an advancement on it, and I guess it goes back to what we were saying about websites. Like mock pages lended itself to that sort of comic style, whereas nowadays it's easier to do sort of collab stuff, I suppose. So that's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's always been a good sense of community that I've seen with collabs, but it's nice to know that it's sort of just an advancement of what it used to be with building each other's self-mocks or you know, the other thing you said, I'm blanking on words. Yeah.
Adaptation.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, perfect. Yeah. I'm glad you added that because it's nice to kind of tie it all together, I suppose, and see how it's advanced and in nice ways as well. That's cool. Shall we take 5 and then we'll come back with those audience questions?
Okay.
Sounds like a plan. I need it. I need it. So, welcome back. We're going to dive into some audience questions. So I put these on Instagram and people sent them in, and so we'll answer them here. The first question we've got is by Golix Tower of Water, and they ask, what's your favorite building technique? So Mitch, what's your favorite building technique?
A little while ago, I started making like these Toa Nuva remakes, and a lot of them are like built around this similar framework where they all use like dark blay as a base color with lighter blay elements or lighter gray elements sometimes for like technical detailing. Like I kind of saw it as like rivets.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been continuing doing that a lot lately, and I really like the way that looks. So I guess a technique that I've been enjoying lately is like, it's very basic, but in places where it would just be simple to use like a 2-length axle, I've been doing 3-length gray axles and then using gray half bushings on either side, because I like the look of it. It gives it some texture. It gives it some depth. I like to think it looks like rivets. But like as an example, like here on Nidiki, like he's got them on his hands and on his arms. Like it's not a necessary thing to do. I just like doing it.
Yeah.
So lately that's been something I've enjoyed doing.
Well, good. I like that you enjoy it as well, you know, because I don't know, sometimes you get, I don't know, do you ever feel like pressured sometimes that you're like, I have to build it this way because that's how everyone else does it and that's how they like it, that, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way personally.
That's
like
good.
like I've definitely, I'd say like 4 years ago, or like 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't say I ever felt pressured to build a certain way. I've never felt that way.
Okay.
But when I feel like I was learning more about like how to build something that's distinct and visually pleasing, I felt less, I guess, less experimental, so to say, or like less.
Yeah.
I feel like some of my earlier stuff is a bit less distinct. Like you can look at someone and go like, oh, that's based off of like so and so's style, or that's based off of a different person's style.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Where I feel now, I feel more comfortable with like fundamentals.
Yeah.
And I feel like because I'm comfortable with fundamentals, I feel more comfortable like experimenting, and not necessarily doing things that go against the grain, so to speak, because I don't know if there really is like the proverbial grain.
Yeah.
But just doing things that I want to do because doing them makes me happy. Like this is something I do because I enjoy it, and it's a hobby, and I try not to take it too seriously. Like I still apply principles of design. Like I still take it seriously enough, but it's at the end of the day, I'm making Lego toys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. I just don't find merit in taking it seriously like that seriously, or taking myself that seriously. Like
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. I can agree with that. For me, I don't know. I really just like it when a mock has really good like shaping on it. That to me is always the most aesthetically pleasing thing when you're making something, or when you look at someone else's mock and they've got like, I don't know, 2 like Hero Factory shell pieces up against like a mask or something, and they just like seamlessly blend into the other. And it just looks so like organic, and it just flows so nicely. I think that to me is one of my favorite techniques to see, but also to do, because when you can put 2 pieces together and you're like, wow, those look like they were just born to fit next to each other, and they weren't. That's always really like pleasing, I suppose.
Can I springboard off that very shortly?
Do it.
Okay. Like parts that were clearly not designed for each other but are shockingly functional together. There's a Ben 10 head that fits perfectly on a Mictoran torso.
Oh, really?
Yes, perfectly.
Huh.
Like you have to put a ball joint on the chest of the torso.
Yeah.
But if you you connect the head to the ball joint and
Oh,
you
yeah.
tilt it downward, it is a completely parallel flush
Jeez.
thing. It sits on it perfectly, and it's the same
Yeah.
color. And I'm like, when I did that, I think I just did it as a joke.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if these worked? And then they
Yeah.
did, and I was like, did someone do that on purpose? Like, I can't imagine they did,
Yeah, right? Yeah.
but they're almost so perfect. And like, I don't know. I'd have to. I guess I'd have to meet the person who designed
Yeah.
that Jetfire. I don't know the Ben 10 things. Whoever made that
Yeah.
head mold, I would have to ask them.
Yeah. I
But otherwise, it is a perfect coincidence.
Absolutely. I feel like that would be fun as a Lego designer to be like, I'm gonna pick the most obscure thing and make it perfectly fit with it, and then no one will
Yeah,
think I did that. You know, that's really
right.
cool. I know I've seen this Tahu mock before. I just never noticed the Matoran that was with it. That's a cool combo. Wow.
It's buried in the extra photos. It's the second to
Oh, I
last one or
see.
something.
Oh, that's probably why then. Okay. Very cool though. On to the next question. This one here is by Ezreal the Blue Moon Mockist, and he asks, favorite mock of the year so far? This is subject to change in the future, I'm sure. So, do you have a favorite mock of the year so far, good sir?
Yeah, that's really difficult. Um, I have an answer, but that might overlap a bit with a question coming up.
Is this the Biocup question?
Um,
Because mine's going to overlap with that too, I think.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
maybe we
well,
should
let's
just
do
do
that. I'll
that.
quickly say the Biocup question because I think the answers are the same for both of us. This question's by Fritz Mocks, and he says, favorite mock you've seen from the Biocup so far? So, Mitch, what's your favorite mock of the year / from the Biocup?
Okay, so I really like this mock. It's got a long title.
Mm-hmm.
It's Lord 505552555348841. That's probably code for something. I'm not
Yeah.
a. And it was made for the BioCup,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers theme, I believe.
Mm.
Yes, and it's these four robots that are all themed differently, and they stack, and then they wear a big coat, and they become one other guy.
Mm.
In his description, he says, loosely based on the Indian Varna system, four main social classes of ancient India were associated with body parts of the primordial being sacrificed by gods.
Wow.
So he has priest, warrior, worker, and merchant, and they
Uh-huh.
are all the different robots, and they stack and they make the one being.
That's so cool.
I really like illustration, and I really like cartoons and stuff. And
Mm.
I didn't mention who made this. This is Ivan Mardinov,
Yeah.
and Ivan has a very very appealing cartoony drawing style.
Yeah.
And it's so simplistic, it's so charming and distinct, and he'll put lot of he'll make a lot of quick little sketches of ideas, and then he'll kind of turn those into the mock city builds. But
Mm.
rarely do they turn out as cartoony and simplistic as those drawings. He usually fleshes them out and turns them into much larger things in much grander scale. But
Mm.
I love that these four guys, and even the big guy they turn into,
Mm.
are they're very similar to the way he draws.
Yeah.
And I find that very very appealing.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're about halfway through the year. It's definitely hard to call favorite
For
mock
sure.
of the whole year.
Mm.
That's a strong contender for me.
Yeah. I second everything you say that this is such a cool mock. There's so much character and personality in these little dudes. And just the idea of a bunch of people in a trench coat, more or less, is hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant choice. Yeah, I I don't have much to say. You've kind of said everything I would say with it. It's I'm speechless. It's very good. My favorite from Biocup / this year, I'll post a link for you in the chat, is by Woomy World. What's it called? Avian Bonsai. I adore this mark. I don't know. There's something about it that I don't know. I don't know if you can make my words sound smarter, Mitch, but there's something about it that almost seems like somewhat like a Renaissance painting or something. I really don't know how to word that, but like this weird idea of like there's got to be some symbolism behind the idea of this bird's tail being a tree and it's like eating itself. Like it almost seems like Narcissist or something, the painting where there's the person looking at their reflection and then they go to like kiss it or stroke it or whatever, and then the reflection in the water dissipates and they end up killing themselves because they're so obsessed with themselves. Like it seems like there's some level of symbolism behind it. Maybe I could have just said symbolism instead of a Renaissance painting, but I love that really deep level of like storytelling behind a mock, or even somehow putting like symbolism and things in it. The feather techniques, just the realistic look of this bird, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. He said it's inspired by like surrealist sculptures.
There you go.
I think it was even inspired by like a particular piece,
Oh, okay.
like that like a non-Lego sculpture.
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that, but
Okay.
I second everything you say. Like the feather textures they're just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
The way the tree trunk and like the tree branches look, it's very natural looking. The bird is very like, outside of like maybe one or two details, very like anatomically correct for a bird. Yeah, like it's such a dynamic looking image. The composition is really good. The colors are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like it's such a striking image. Like you look at that thing and it stays with you.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of talk when he posted this. And I think, to nobody's surprise, this was the number one highest ranked mock in the preliminary round. And I mean, I think it's deserved. I can't say I know what I would have scored it, because this is my first year not doing judging.
Yeah.
Well, my first year not organizing the Bio Cup.
Yes.
But I like, had I been on the judging team, I certainly would have not disagreed with its ranking.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's
so impressive.
It's one of those things that when you look at it, you go, that isn't Lego.
Yes.
Or like, it's the kind of thing that you show to someone and they go, wow, I had no idea like that was capable with Lego.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
It almost like, I could very easily see this as something that like challenges people's expectations of Lego as like a creative medium.
Yeah. No, it's so impressive. I'm glad you were saying it's made waves and stuff. Like, certain people I've spoken to about it have been equally impressed. It's again, I agree with what Ezreal said with the question that, subject to change, what is my exact favorite mock this year, but currently it's probably that. Yeah. On to the next question. This is by Mason the Metalhead, and they ask, what do you think is the hardest part to work with when making a mock?
So we brought this up before the recording. I can think of two different ways to answer this. If we're talking like part as in like a Lego element, like that's a very open-ended question. Like, I could probably name hundreds of pieces that I find extremely difficult to work with. Or like, the hardest part of like the design process would also be like a different answer. So I think I can keep both pretty short and sweet. Like, the hardest part of like the design process for me is probably like, realized lately that a lot of my design process is like figuring out kind of the basic idea of the character I want to make, and then finding the character while I'm building it. Like I know kind of who I want to make, but what they look like exactly is a bit more loose.
Yes.
And that tends to find itself as I'm building it. But then like naming it or photographing the mock in a way that's conveys what I want, that I find difficult.
Makes sense.
But as far as like particular parts that I find difficult to build with, I find a lot of prefabricated limb pieces difficult.
Oh yeah.
Because I know a lot of people tend to do. I should specify. I should say like Gen 1 prefab limbs, like Anika
Right.
shins
Yep.
or like model limbs. Like I struggle with those um, because I tend to do a lot of custom torsos and then prefab limbs, but I also tend to stick to like CCBS limbs
Mm-hmm.
or parts that are similar to CCBS.
Yeah.
And when I do a custom limb, it generally is in service of a CCBS part, um, just because I like the simple leading lines that those parts create.
Makes sense.
And my mocks tend to have more complex torso shapes, so I want those like thinner limbs to like lead you into the torso where it is more complex and you have to like parse it a bit more.
Oh yeah.
Like Gen 1 prefab limbs I find difficult just because they tend to make very specific shapes and they're not always like that simple line look that I'm going for.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of like Gen 1 parts that I find difficult, especially like a lot of the silver stuff that's like really textured.
Yes. Yes, I can agree with that.
That's difficult for me, but like that's just because like the way I build, I think.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. It is interesting to hear your pieces there, because I'm sure there's other people who will disagree. Like I've seen specifically like those mutter limbs being used very often on certain mocks on BIS and stuff like that, and people use it well, but like just because they use it well doesn't mean everyone can use it well, sort of thing. And like for example, my answer to this question, I was going to say like Duplo pieces, but I think, is it Primus? He built a character that uses Duplo for like shoulders, and it's absolutely exquisite. So like it's still possible to use. It's just, for me, I look at that sort of thing and go like, oh, that might be a bit tougher. If we're talking what you said of like the naming of a mock and stuff like that, I think probably the hardest part of building is probably the moment before you build. Like you maybe have an idea and you're about to like start making it with Lego. It's not always bad, but there are definitely times where there's that like very sort of documented known thing with artists of that like fear of the blank page, where you can be very like, crap, like what if I'm not good enough? What if this doesn't look good? Like how do I do this? And it's often just in your head because it's like you've done it 1,000 times before. It's not going to be a problem. But like there's many times where I've gone to build something and I'm like, what if it's awful? Like, and then it's just about getting over it, I guess. But like that to me is probably the hardest part, because I think there's multiple builds I've, delayed for a long period of time and then eventually get started. I'm like, why was I so afraid of that? Like just suck it up and do it. Or builds entirely where you're just like, oh, I'm not even going to approach that because I'm too scared, sort of thing. But I think it's about just practicing that enough so that it no longer becomes as daunting. I don't know. I think that's my answer to that.
Yeah. As far as Duplo goes, I can't think of anything by Primus that uses Duplo, but I know Heaven, our Optimus convoy or whatever.
Yes, thank you.
He goes by a lot of different things.
Yep.
He has a lot of cool Duplo stuff.
That was who I was thinking of. Yeah. It's because his name has Optimus in it. I was thinking Primus, like Transformers. And yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I didn't want to miscredit, but I forgot. Thank you.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to use more Duplo. I have literally 0 Duplo pieces.
Yeah, okay.
I can't, but man, Duplo makes some really interesting parts.
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I know there's some AFOLs who are very adverse to Duplo as a whole. They're just like, no. I don't know. To me, it's like Galador. It's kind of exciting. It's like it's so weird and different that like why not play with it?
I seem to recall Duplo's more popular amongst like the big sculptural crowd because it's like you essentially have one brick that solves the problem that like 16 bricks or like system bricks would, or like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it would be like a 2x2, so 4. I guess like 8. I think it's 8 2x2s are the size of one Duplo brick.
Yep. Makes sense.
So for internals, people making like those big sculptures, they love Duplo.
Yeah.
Because you can just fill in space with normal Duplo bricks and
Yeah.
build like a skeleton with that. I
Yeah.
mean, at a certain point, you need like steel, but
Yeah. Yeah.
for certain size sculptural mocks, I know people use Duplo on the insides.
Yeah. Good cost effective way in that sense. Yeah. Nah. Perfect. Let's go to the final question now. This one's by Nathaniel Inouye. And he says, favorite mock you've done. So what's your favorite mock that you've done?
Well, as much as I talked about Jack, like he's probably my favorite character, but as far as like a build, he's not terribly exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's mostly just like a big chunk of system with like a couple of joints and some Galador pieces on him.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he's a simple character built rather simply.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of simple, but I don't know, he doesn't excite me a whole lot.
Fair.
As far as like my favorite build on a technical level, probably my Nadiki remake.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot that went into the creation of that one because I feel like it was one of the first ones where I feel like I was able to like really understand that build style I mentioned earlier, like with those like that dark blay base color and like the gray accents.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I was able to balance that out with the colors on the mock really well. And then like the parts of it that were dark green, like those are very simplistically built too. But not like they're surrounded by other stuff that I think makes the mock as a whole more interesting. Like that mock is actually built like almost set like, where you know how like the internals of a lot of sets are like big like rectangles with studs on all sides of them because of like the amount of snot bricks that exist these days.
Yeah.
Like Nadiki's built that way,
Yes.
where like his body and head are two big chunks of not like rectangles.
Yeah.
And then those are attached to an Avmatoran torso, and then they have custom ones.
Perfect.
So that mock was like, he's almost unlike everything else I've built because he's very system heavy. He's very set like. He's like one of the only mocks I've ever built that has stickers, and he has a lot of them.
Yeah.
He has cut pieces because his eyes are like the rubber bar ends of like the Baraki spikes.
Yeah.
But they're the rubber version, so I could cut through them easier.
Okay.
And then those are just sitting in binoculars.
Huh.
And then, like, he was very heavily inspired by he was inspired by the Krika set.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also heavily inspired by some monsters from a movie that I just absolutely love. He was inspired by, they're called the Muto, and they're from the 2014 Legendary Studios Godzilla movie.
Oh, cool. Okay.
When that movie came out, I remember not liking them much, but I've really turned around on them, and they're like probably some of my favorite monsters ever.
Awesome.
And they're very insectoid, so I thought that fit
Wow.
Nadiki.
Yeah.
I thought that fit him, and I wanted to kind of recreate them. And like there were a bunch of other like little minor things that kind of came along during the build process that I enjoyed, but he's just like a big collection of, how do I say this? Like everything that I wanted to achieve, I think I did achieve. He's just this like perfect mix of all that.
Perfect.
And I'm very pleased with how that mock turned out.
Well, that's good. Yeah, well, that's nice to hear. Cool to see that art as well. Those aliens do look really cool, monsters or whatever. But yeah, fantastic. For me, well, obviously I build a lot of system as well as Bionicle, so I'll answer for both. There's an old mock I made called Cosmoc. It's a like a system, very system focused Bionicle, quote unquote Bionicle. I guess you could still call it Bionicle. The idea was it was like a little classic space Matoran kind of character. Like it used the yellow cow and it's got like classic space colors and looks very like Transformer like because it kind of has like jets and like areas that you would expect a Transformer to have when it turns into its robot mode sort of thing. I don't know, I just liked how much like posability that mock had, and the kind of character behind it. the character that it sort of exudes. I mean, I didn't necessarily write a story or anything for it. Yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed that mock. And then in terms of system stuff, probably I built like a Star Wars Cantina mock, which I quite like. And I would have loved to have brought it to like Brick Fair or something, but I don't have the space in my suitcase, unfortunately. But I love building like interiors with Lego or with system, and I love adding in like minifigures, and obviously I like Star Wars as well. So like that was just, it just ticks a lot of the boxes of things I like. So it's just, yeah, quite enjoy that one. It's probably the answer to that question for me. So that's it for those audience questions. Thank you very much, Mitch. That's where we'll end off the podcast for now. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, good sir, and I look forward to finally being able to meet you in person very, very soon at Brick Fair.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time.
Too long. Yeah.
So I'm excited too.
Yeah. Tell the people where they can find you online. Obviously, I'll have links in the description, but you know.
Yeah. So I'm on Flickr and Instagram, like pretty much anyone. I have a Twitter, but it's not like a Lego centric thing. I do post my mocks there, but I also post like illustrations I do of Jack, or like share other artwork, share other people's mocks.
Fantastic.
It's not like a great place for like my creative output, but it exists.
Yeah.
There. You can follow if you want. Probably not much for most people, but those three are like probably the big three.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll have links to those in the description, and anything else that is worth following, because it is worth following Mitch. He makes good stuff. So yeah, thank you, my man. And I'll see you soon, and see you in a future podcast.
Thanks. I'm always happy to talk. It's fun.
Always happy to have you on.
Man.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.